Good morning everybody and welcome back to another War Thunder video, and welcome to another review video. I haven't done one of these in a while, and I did say I was going to be reviewing a lot of the French tanks as they're all new because of this patch. And due to some really good games I had yesterday in this vehicle, I decided I'd start with the AMX-50. Those of you who've ever done review videos of any description in the past will know that the whole garage bit is a piece of cake to do, but the actual gameplay, to get gameplay that you think really gets across how the tank works, is the hard part. And I try to do that before I actually do the video because it just makes it easier, rather than recording the garage or the hangar section, going out in the vehicle, trying to get a few decent games and just doing terrible, really. But thankfully that's already been done. So, I digress. Today we are looking at the AMX-50. So let's begin with the stat card. So, the AMX-50 is a medium tank, despite being in what I presume to be the French heavy tank line. This is something that kind of annoyed me to begin with, but I got over it. This tank has the 100mm SA-47 L58 cannon with 48 rounds of ammunition, a 7.5mm Mach 31 machine gun in the coaxial, a turret rotation speed of 21.2 degrees per second, which is pretty good, 8 degrees of gun depression, 15 degrees of elevation. The elevation we'll get onto in a minute because that's to do with the turret itself. Fire rate of 9 rounds per minute. This thing has an autoloader. A reload rate of 38 seconds, that's to reload the entire drum. Armour we'll go to in a minute. Mass of 54 tons. Engine power 912 horsepower at 2800 RPM. A max speed of 51 kilometers an hour. Maximum inclination of 41 degrees. And a maximum repair cost at my current loadout at 9,500 lions, with the vehicle research down at the bottom there. So let's go to modifications. This tank only gets 2 rounds. There are no unlockable shells available for this tank. What you see is what you get. You get the HE, which is, I would not recommend taking any of this, because if you fire 1 round and then reload the entire magazine, you have to reload an entire magazine, so the reload rate will be 38 seconds even if you've only fired 1 round. And if you want to load HE just for the sake of shooting at an SPAA, you might as well just fire the AP round, which is our standard shell. APC-BC shell. This has 226mm of penetration at 100 meters, going out to 179 at 2000 at a 90 degree angle, and at a 30 degree angle 101mm of penetration at 100 meters, going out to 80 at 2000. This is a bloody good shell, and given the AP buff, the fact that it has no explosive filler does not matter whatsoever. This round will punch through the upper frontal plate of a Panther and take out everything in its path. So let's look at the armour. Now, before we look at the armour, I mentioned earlier that the terrible gun elevation is due to the turret. The oscillating turret, which houses the magazines for the auto-loading system, because the entire turret lifts up and down rather than just the barrel lifting up and down, the back of the bostle will hit the rear engine deck of the tank, which limits how far up the barrel can reach. This is a factor on all French tanks with the auto-loading mechanism, and especially with the oscillating turret, but it's particularly an issue with these tanks, the mediums, like the Lorraine, which is not really a medium tank, it's more or less a light tank, and the AMX-50. So, let's look at the armour. We have 80mm of frontal armour on the upper frontal plate, which, well, is more or less around 120mm of armour due to the sloping. The lower plate is 35mm thick, but due to the sloping is more or less the equivalent of 80mm thick, which is pretty good really. It's quite a steep angle. Side of the hull, weak spot here, as we can see from this angle. Try not to angle the hull if you can possibly help it. If you angle around a building, cover this bit up. If the gun is facing this to the left here, cover this bit up behind the building and only show your angled frontal plate and the extreme angle of this plate here, so that you can shoot around the building. That way you've got the best chance of bouncing any rounds that fire at you without exposing the flattened part of this armour here. Upper deck is 20mm thick. 20mm cannon rounds may be able to penetrate this. I can't say for certain that I've ever been penetrated by any, but just a warning. 30mm of rolled homogeneous armour on the side of the turret is 30mm thick, with the collar, for lack of a better word, being 30mm thick, and at the front 40mm thick, 45mm thick. But it is worth mentioning that this 30mm acts as spaced armour as well. Rear of the tank, 40mm on the rear and 30mm on the rear of the turret. The crew layout is reasonably standard. We have the driver, the machine gunner, even though there is no machine gunner in the hull of this vehicle. The ammo is all loaded in the sides of the tank, much like in the Tigers, with some down on the floor of the deck there. Some rounds loaded into the turret, depending on how many rounds you take. The loader, the commander, and the gunner, with the engine and transmission all in the rear. So, fairly standard stuff really. Let's jump into the game and I'll show you how this thing plays. So here we go with the gameplay section of this review. This is on the Advanced to the Rhine map, or as I prefer to call it, Cologne. We are of course in the AMX-50 and we're going to start by heading pretty much down the centre of the map. Generally, even if I'm in a heavily armoured tank, I don't tend to go directly for the cap, so I try to, especially in something with an autoloader, i.e. if I'm driving the French, I try to set up ambush positions. I'm not a massive fan of relying on my armour in War Thunder, something that you can do in games like World of Tanks, but in War Thunder all people really have to do is just load, if they have it, depending on what tier you're playing at, heat, APCR, Sabo, and just punch straight through the armour. Thankfully I don't have that issue so much in this game, but I am definitely always aware of it, as should you be. Let me know, by the way, I've mentioned this before we get into any sticky situations, let me know what you thought about the music over the top of the hangar section. People have mentioned to me before that just me talking with silence in the background can be a bit monotonous. I don't know if the music worked well or not, but I figured I'd give it a go for this review. If you thought it went alright, then let me know. I do have a limited supply of music available, however, that's available on my editing software. There is an AA in front of me. If you think it went alright, let me know, and I may consider doing it again in the future. But as I said, due to my limited supply of music I have available, and not being able to just use music that I can download, because I'm, as you know, or may not know, I edit all of my videos on my PS4. I basically run my YouTube channel from my PS4. So, like I said, it may get a bit boring hearing the same music over and over and over again, so yeah, just bear that in mind. But let me know in the comments, or in the comment section on Reddit, or wherever else this video may end up, and we'll go from there. So, with that pesky AAA taken out, we are moving up towards A. Those of you who saw the Salty clip that I uploaded onto Reddit yesterday, and onto my YouTube channel, naturally, yesterday, will be all too familiar, or maybe all too familiar with this part of the game, but I think it really does show how well the autoloaders can work, so long as you have the armour to take hits, like that. Bounced a shot from the long 88 on the Tiger 2 SLA. He's using cover quite sensibly there to cover up his lower plate and angling his turret, but snapshot through the upper right hand side of his turret, takes out 2 of his crew and damages his cannon breech. As his gunner is down, I take the opportunity, I do not wait, I push up as quickly as I can. I need to take him out before his gunner gets back up. Put 1 shot through the side, take out the turret ring and some of the ammunition. That should have killed him really, but he is momentarily no threat, so I take out the Ersatz M10. That is actually how you pronounce it, by the way, Ersatz. It's German. A lot of people are saying Ersatz. It's not, it's Ersatz. It's, yeah. Let's move on. Another Ersatz M10 in front of me. 1 shot straight through the front row. Lower plate, takes out all of the crew, detonates the ammo rack, destroys the tank. 3 kills in the space of 30 seconds. Not bad going. Considering this 100mm gun is rather effective, you know, I've never seen anybody make a play like that before. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I'll admit there is a certain, well, there is quite a lot of luck involved in doing things like that. So a few seconds later, we have moved down the road and are heading towards the B capture point. I think this is B, or it may be C, I don't know. I can't see the map. I think it's B. Well, the bottom right hand cap then. We have pushed up. There was a Type 60 with the recoilless rifles sat in the cap circle. It is B, I thought it was. Forgive me, the map is tiny on this screen. So we have taken out the Type 60 and are taking the cap. As I said, that bit you've just seen in the A capture point, I've never done anything like that before. That was incredibly ballsy of me. It could have quite easily gone pear-shaped, but I think it does show as a good example of what this tank and most of the autoloaders can do if they are used to their full and utmost potential. Skill of the driver does of course come into it, but then again, as I said, so does luck. So we are now heading back towards A, and I'm probably going to keep an eye out to my right hand side. We've taken all 3 of the capture points. Our team is doing rather well, which is always refreshing, especially in War Thunder where most of my teams end up being complete crap. But nevertheless, I'm going to continue pushing up towards the A capture point, as there is something currently taking it. So we're going to head up and go and see what that is. I think vehicles with the autoloaders have to be played in such a way that you'll have noticed I have gone through a full magazine reload, which you didn't see. I edited that out. They do have a tendency to, although the reload rate from one shell to the next is quite short, I think it's about 6 seconds with this thing, maybe 7 seconds. You do have the upper hand over most of the vehicles you'll be facing reload-wise, unless they're light tanks with, say, 76mm guns, like the Walker Bulldog, for example. And the French tend to be on the side of the Germans and the Japanese at the moment. But this was one of those rare games, I donked that shot horribly. This is one of those rare games where I actually ended up fighting against the Germans, which was nice, really. Made a change. So have you guys been driving your AMX-50? What do you think about it? I know this video was not necessarily, that was a lucky shot as well, by the way. I know this video is not necessarily very long, but I hope you learned something from the video. Let me know what you think about the music and what have you in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe.